Hi. Today I'm going to talk about the Trecena of Tijax, and as you can see, I'm doing it slightly differently today. Here I am, this is my garden, my house in San Pablo La Laguna in Guatemala. And I decided that after having done these Trecena videos for a little while, what I'd like to do is kind of like to bring a bit more depth into them, to mix it up a little bit, to do something which is a bit more freeform and flowing, which is kind of like a bit more who I am and the way that I do things. So this one hopefully will be a bit more me, if you see what I mean. So I hope that's okay with you, and I hope you enjoy it. So Trecena of Tijax is a really interesting Trecena to be working with. Tijax is the obsidian blade. Now this is my Tijax. This was a piece of obsidian that was given to me by some dear friends, Gabby and Charlie, at my birthday last year. And as you can see, this is a beautiful piece of black obsidian. This is the obsidian blade. You can see it almost looks like a spear point or something like that. It's not, it came from a quarry outside Guatemala City. But this is what it is, and it's really, really sharp on this edge here. You know, this is like what we would see as flint arrowheads. You know, the same kind of thing. It cuts like glass. And that's what Tijax is all about. But that blade is the blade of the surgeon as well as the warrior. And so whilst we might see this as a time of separation, we might see this as a time of cutting, we can see this as a time to cut things out, but it's cutting out what doesn't fit anymore. It's releasing your grip, releasing your attachments, releasing things which are holding you back, releasing the things which are stopping you from healing. Tijax is the sign of the surgeon, it's the sign of the healer, and the healer, the surgeon, may remove things with the obsidian blade in order to allow healing to occur, like cutting out a foreign body so that the human body can heal. So what we can really see is that in the Trecena of Tijax, it's about letting go of the things which are stopping your healing, and therefore it's about healing. Okay, so one Tijax. Now we just, in 20 days ago or so, we went through 7 Tijax. I was calling that the final cut. This is like, right, like done, dusted, released. Okay, one Tijax is about bringing in a new period of healing, a new time of healing. It's about looking around and saying, right, okay, this is a time of renovation. This is a time of remodeling in one way or another. We've just come out of the Trecenas of Kawok, and then the Trecena of Air. And we can see it's kind of like the birth and then the beginning of the journey. And here we're kind of like severing the umbilical cord, allowing us to move forward, allowing us to develop on our own. And what are we developing to? Because I feel that this is an important part to look at the Trecena. What's the beginning and the end? So the beginning is one Tijax, the beginning of the healing, the beginning of the quest, because Tijax is also about using this obsidian blade in your quest for the divine, using this obsidian blade to cut through the falsehood, to cut through that which is out of balance, to cut through to the truth, to cut through to the divinity. And where are we going with it? Well, the final day of the Trecena is a day 13Z, Oshlahu Z. Oshlahu Z, well, Oshlahu, 13 is the number of the spirit world, the number of the ancestors, and Z is the Nawal of guidance, faith and loyalty. And so what we have there, we're starting our quest, and our quest ends in some ways. Our quest ends on the day which represents faith and loyalty to our ancestors in the spirit world. So as you can see, I'm pretty excited about this Trecena. Doesn't mean that it's necessarily all going to be plain sailing. I mean, like, we are talking about cutting away that which doesn't fit anymore. But we're also talking about beginning our true healing. And I think that's a pretty exciting thing to be happening. So as we go through this Trecena, we're going through one Tijax, the beginning of the healing, into 2 Kawok. Well, 2 Kawok, what can we see about that? Kawok being the midwife, Kawok being the rainstorm, Kawok bringing the new life into the world. And the number 2 representing self-sacrifice. Now Tijax can also represent some form of sacrifice. So 2 Kawok could be kind of like seeing how we can bring new life by allowing parts of ourselves to be cut away, by allowing a little bit of our own self-sacrifice. We then go to 3 Arpu. Now the number 3 can be challenging, but I feel it's only challenging when it's when you try to apply it externally. The thing is, if you apply a 3 internally, That's where its home is, that's where it sits. And so when we talk about Achpu, we're talking about the divinity which we see in our world, the quest for the divine, as it were. And so 3 Achpu is looking for that divinity within ourselves. And again, this is part of our healing process. This is our separation from what's around us, our cutting away of attachments that we no longer need, using our obsidian blade to cut them away, to look inside for the divinity rather than to look for our attachments to other people, situations, the material realm as a place where we're looking for our divinity. We then go into 4 Emosh. So 4 Emosh being the dream world, Emosh representing the collective consciousness, Emosh representing our ability to dream things into existence, and the number 4 representing the stable physical plane of existence. So 4 Emosh is about manifesting our dreams into the material plane. We then move into 5 Ik. 5 Ik, well, we were in a 5 Ik year last year. Need I say more about that? Ich can sometimes come along and turn everything upside down. Ich is all about change, but it's also the breath of life. And the breath of life is what makes us all live. So it's not always the easiest thing to deal with, but it's necessary. It's what inflates our lungs, the sak ich, the white breath, the soul. Okay, so when we look at it from that perspective, 5 ich, well, the 5, it's that one hand, it's about work. It's about sometimes it being hard work. This is about working on change, because Ich brings change. So it's all about the changes that we bring into our lives, the changes that bring healing. And saying, well, you know, we've got to put a bit of effort into them. That's what work is. It's putting energy into the changes, putting energy and not just expecting things to happen. So these changes can be beneficial. Chances are, if we choose to kind of like try and dodge out of them, not put our energy in, that's when they might get more challenging. From 5 Ik, it takes us into 6 Akabal. So Akabal is the new concept, it's the new dawn, it's that light at the end of the tunnel that's coming, it's that light just before sunrise, the twilight we might call it. And the number 6 represents the physical plane, but with the divine masculine and divine feminine, the heart of the sky and the heart of the earth coming into it. So it's kind of drawing on the upper and lower realms to bring them into this world. So this is kind of like saying that the day 6 of Kabal is about using the inspiration from the heart of the sky and the heart of the earth to create a new concept and bring it into the physical world. Now, this could be a very, very interesting thing when it comes to releasing your attachments and coming into your healing, right? This is your new concept. This is things that you haven't seen before because they're here now, being divinely inspired to you. The next day is 7 Cat. This is the midpoint of the Trecena, the peak of the Trecena. Sometimes it's 7 is the day of death, the day of endings. Cat is the day of gathering and releasing. It's the day on which we release our burdens. It's the day on which we cut the net, interestingly, with an obsidian blade. And we can cut that net so that we can gather more abundance in. You know, this is what it's for. This is to allow the abundance in. You can't just keep filling and filling and filling and filling and filling your net and expecting to move forward. Sometimes you've got to empty it. Sometimes you've got to let it go so that you can start again, so that you can collect your new abundance, because, you know, that stuff that's in the bottom of your net that you've had in there for years, it's actually kind of like rotting or out of date and you don't need anymore. You've got to let that stuff go, so that you can gather the new, fresh, vital harvest that Cat provides for you. So again, 7 Cat could be seen as kind of like the final emptying, the release, the final release of the burden, because when we burn these little strings and release our burden on Cat days, that's what it's all about. So it's kind of like finally unburdening ourselves so that we can go forward, so we can move forward in life. Now, the ceremonial day, or I would choose 2 days for ceremony in this Trecena. The first would obviously be the 1 Tijax day, which will be Saturday. And then the following Saturday will be the 8 Can, Washikib Can. Now, we came out of the Trecena of Can, of course, and now we have this theme repeated, and we give thanks for the wisdom that we've received. We give thanks for our empowerment and the empowerment of others. We give thanks, those of us who practice Reiki, those of us who work with Kundalini Yoga, all of those kind of things, those things where our life force energy helps to guide us, helps to bring us wisdom in our bodies. That's all governed by Can. And so on Washakip Can, we give thanks for that, thanks for our body lightning. As we see it, this is also a healing modality. This wisdom that we receive through the energy in our veins, through the energy in our blood, the lightning in the blood, the Kayapa. This is all governed by Can. So we have an opportunity here to give thanks, to make our ceremony, to give thanks for our wisdom, and to give thanks for the empowerment that we've received, and all the great things that have happened to us on our journey, on our quest. After 8 Can, we go into 9 Kame. So 9 Kame, Kame, spiritual transformer. Kame is death. But, you know, don't let that fool you and don't let that freak you out. Kame is something that happens every 20 days. We have this opportunity to spiritually transform, to go up a level. It's a day when our fears might present themselves and ask us, are we ready to handle this? Are we ready to go through this? Now here, we're traveling through the Trecena of Tijax, so we can confront our fears with that obsidian blade and say, right, okay, I'm ready to cut through this. Now, what do we have supporting it? We have the number 9. The number 9 is seen as the number of the divine feminine. It's the number of lunations that we spend in the womb. And so it's very much related to feminine magic, very much related to the female side of life. Feminine strength, but compassion. And here we see our opportunity on 9 Kame to face our challenges with compassion, not just trying to power through them, not trying to like overcome them in any kind of strength way, apart from the feminine strength of compassion. And so this might also be a day on which the women in our lives are those who help us to transform. They help to guide us through this transformative process. We then move into 10 Kech. So 10, it's these two hands coming together. It's agreement, it's cooperation, it's community. And Kech is a spiritual leader, but it's also about the strength that we get from the wilderness, the strength that we get from the power of nature. It represents, well, it represents the Mayan religion, it represents the higher level Mayan priests as well. And so here we see kind of how we can be of spiritual service within our community, how we can step up and lead when it's required of us. It's not about the kind of like ego side of leading or anything like that. It's about serving our community, being there for our community, being that spiritual guide when it's asked of us, not shying away from our responsibilities. It's also about the power of nature within our community. So 10 Kech is a great time to get a bunch of friends together and go out into nature, go and replenish, go and strengthen. We then move into 11 Anil. Now, Anil is this beautiful golden shining light, this beautiful ripening. And it has this very, very joyful element to it, but sometimes it can get a little bit over top. Sometimes it can get kind of like a little bit too wrapped up in its own magic, in its own light. And sometimes it can get intoxicated by its golden nature. Now, I only say that because, you know, Kanil really generally is a beautiful, joyful Nawal. And there has to be some kind of like balance, right? But in general, Kanil is seen as a very, very good thing. Now here we have it coupled with the number 11, and the number 11 is kind of like this really, really hyperactive number. I describe it as being like a rocket with a broken stick. It's like pew, 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 pew. You don't know where it's going to go next. You don't know what's going to happen next. And so here we see, when it's combined with Kanil, this could be about finding your joy in many directions, finding your ripening in many directions, finding this harvest that comes to you, because Kanil is about finishing our projects. It's about taking that abundance from the harvest that we've been growing all year and finally getting, you know, our pay for it, finally getting the joy from what we've been cultivating. So Kanil can certainly be about finishing your projects, and here it's like kind of many things, many strands possibly being finished at one time. It's a high number. So, you know, we can say that there could be a great deal of joy on that day. Probably best not to get too carried away with it, though. The 1st of August will be the day 12 Toch. Now, Toch is a sign of offering. It's a sign of payment. And on Toch days, these are often days, they represent the sacred fire themselves. They represent giving back for all that we've received. So here we are, 11 Hanil, giving us all this abundance from so many directions, followed by 12 toch, which is giving back, making an offering and giving thanks for everything that we've received, combined with the number 12, which represents all of our life's experience, everything being bundled together in one whole. And so when we look at it from that point of view, 12 toch is really about the ability to give thanks, to make a payment or an offering, light a candle, make a ceremony or something like that, for all the good things that you've received in your life, for your life path, through just being here. These are all important things to remember. Toch days are always great for offering. A little bit of kopal, a candle here, do a full fire ceremony if you like. It doesn't really matter what you do. The time to remember, count your blessings. That's really what toch is about. So give thanks, give a little bit back, do some tithing, take a little time to use the skills that you've learned through your life to help your community. This is the true nature of giving back. This is the true nature of service. Okay, and then finally on the 2nd of August, that's when we'll go into this 13th Z. Now Z can have quite a reputation, and in fact the 13th Z day is one of the days of the celebration of the Rilachmam. The Rilachmam was what then went on to become Mashimon when it was fused with Catholicism. So it is a day when we kind of have to watch out. On the description of the Rilachmam, we have two ways of looking at it. We talk about the grandfather. The grandfather is kind of like the old earth father. And yes, he is this smoking, drinking deity, as it were. And yes, we go over and give him cigarettes and rum over in Santiago Atitlan. There is this kind of like almost dark edge to it, in a way. But a lot of the offerings are made to the Rilachmam. For example, women will go and make offerings to him so that their husbands are protected. You feed the grandfather with the rum and the cigarettes so that the husbands don't get the vices. So it is concerning vice on that day. So this is all about this day of kind of like making offerings to avoid our vices. Z, in its purest form, is the unconditional love of our grandfather. The unconditional love that comes to us and the unconditional love that we can display. Z is faith and loyalty and trust and guidance. And here we have it, combined with our ancestors, hence the Rilachmam. But also this is where we're looking at it and trusting the guidance of our own ancestors. This is where we're looking at it, trusting the guidance of our spirit guides if we have them. This is where our trust, our faith in our guidance might be strengthened on that day. Now sometimes you're going to get something which comes along and shakes your faith, something which makes you question your guidance. Well, here is when the veil between the worlds is kind of thin on the 13 days. And this is where you might find that you get your messages through. This is where, if you're looking for guidance, if you're looking for faith in your path, if you're looking for what you're going to receive from the healing which has come through this one Tijax Trecena, then the day 13Z is when it all comes together. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope you enjoy the Tijax Trecena. Thank you.